Ancel Keys in the mid-1950s put forward the theory that fat causes heart disease. That's where it all came from. And Dr. Malcolm Kendrick, in his book, The Great Cholesterol Con, he said, I'm still waiting for the evidence that fat causes heart disease. And he's got a quote from Ancel Keys in his book where Ancel Keys says, we're pretty sure the research will come. Is that science? That's not true science at all. And when he was putting his theory forth, he had to eliminate the Maasai, because the Maasai live on blood, meat and milk, zero heart disease. He had to eliminate the French and the Norwegians because they eat a lot of creams and butters and cheeses. Now that's not true science, is it? True science is looking at everything and comparing the evidence. My girlfriend's got a orphanage in Africa, East African Mission, and the last, I think, 10 years they've started taking babies, because there was a lot of orphaned babies with mothers with AIDS that died. And she said, we just have always given them soy milk. But they had some Maasai babies, and the Maasai babies did not do well on the soy. And her husband got frustrated with it one day. The babies were deteriorating. He went and bought a cow, milked the cow, gave the cow's milk to the Maasai babies. They thrived. You see, it's in their heritage. Our heritage has a lot to do with the way we are. Our heritage. If you're a 5th or 6th generation dairy farmer, you can probably handle the dairy. But it must be organic, because the state of the cows today is not in a good state. So these babies thrived because they had the genes and they had the gut from their ancestors. So is that a good diet? Milk, meat and blood? No, it's not. It's not a balanced diet. It's not a balanced diet at all. And as you can see by our lecture this morning, it's very acid forming. The Maasai get away with it because they've got a body and a gut that's eaten that way for a long time, and they're incredibly active. They walk about 100 miles a day sometimes. So the activity and the lack of chemicals and environmental poisons they're exposed to are contributing factors as to why they actually survive on such a diet. Now, fat is not the problem. And Dr. Robert Atkins, he did a good job at starting to awaken people to the fact that it's not the fat. The FODMAP diet, the paleo diet, the zone, the beach, there's lots of different diets that have also come out since Atkins that are saying much the same thing. If fat was really the main cause of heart disease, the data over the last 50 years should have made things better by now. Instead, the opposite happened. In the 1970s, when low-fat guidelines became popular in the United States, obesity rates were around 15%. Today, that number is over 40% among adults. During the same period, sugar intake, refined carbohydrates, and ultra-processed foods increased sharply. That change in eating patterns happened at the same time as diabetes, and metabolic disease began rising fast. One of the biggest shifts was the replacement of natural fats with processed vegetable oils and refined carbohydrates. When food manufacturers removed fat, food lost flavor. To fix that, they added sugar, starch, and artificial flavoring. The result was food that was easy to overeat and hard to stop eating. Studies now show that ultra-processed foods make people consume about 500 extra calories per day compared to whole foods, even when meals are matched for nutrients. That's not about willpower. That's about how the food affects appetite and hunger signals. There's also strong evidence showing that refined carbohydrates have a much stronger effect on insulin than fat does. Insulin is the hormone that tells your body to store energy. When insulin stays high all day from constant intake of sugar and refined carbs, the body stays in storage mode. Fat gets blamed, but it is often the blood sugar swings doing the real damage. This helps explain why people can gain weight on a low-fat diet that is high in cereal, toast, juice, pasta, and snacks. On paper, it looks healthy. In the body, it creates constant hunger, cravings, and fatigue. Many people notice that when they reduce sugar and refined carbs and bring back natural fats like eggs, olive oil, yogurt, butter, and nuts, they feel full for longer and snack less without trying. There was a large trial called the DIETFITS study that followed over 600 people for 1 year. Some followed a healthy low-fat diet, others followed a healthy low-carb diet. The result? Both groups lost weight, but the quality of food mattered more than fat intake. The people who did best were the ones who cut sugar, white flour, and processed foods and focused on real meals. That's where the conversation about fat should really sit. The issue is not butter versus margarine. The issue is real food versus processed food. A plate of vegetables, eggs, fish, fruit, nuts, and natural fats behaves very differently in the body compared to a plate of cereal, toast, juice, and low-fat flavoured yogurt. So before we have a look at what happens when the glucose goes into the cell, we're going to stop for a moment and have a look at the organ called the pancreas, which lives approximately central and to the left of our body, underneath the ribs, the pancreas. And the pancreas is the organ that releases the two hormones that balance blood glucose levels. One is insulin, and the role of insulin is to get the blood sugar levels down. And the other hormone is glucagon. And glucagon is the hormone that gets the blood sugar levels up again. So these two hormones act together to maintain blood sugar levels. So the glucose comes into the cell under the action of insulin. You see, getting blood sugar levels down, all of these foods go in, it causes glucose to go high. And so the brain says, quick pancreas, release insulin, get it out of the blood and into the cell. Now when it gets into the cell, it goes through a 20-step pathway. And that 20-step pathway gives us 2 units of energy. Isn't that why we eat? To give us energy. So that the eyes see, the ears hear, the brain works, the body moves. The end result of the 20-step pathway is a chemical form of glucose called pyruvate. And pyruvate, as the chemical form of glucose, gets fed into the 8-step pathway. This 8-step pathway is often called the powerhouse of the cell because it delivers 36 units of energy. How come a 20-step pathway only gives us 2 and an 8-step pathway gives us 36? The difference is oxygen. This pathway, no oxygen. As we go through our classes this week, we'll be exploring that a little bit more in different areas. So this is the first place that the glucose gets sent, is down the energy pathways. But there's still a lot of glucose left over. And so now it gets stored as glycogen. What's glycogen? Glycogen is a name given to quick-release glucose stores. And these glycogen are little molecules of glucose. Little molecules of glucose just sitting in the muscle cell waiting to be used. Quick-release glucose stores. That's why you don't need to eat before you do your morning exercise. Because if you eat before you do your morning exercise, then you're going to have a war between the muscles that are trying to work and the stomachs that are trying to digest. No, just make sure you have adequate water, because water helps release these little molecules of glucose. You don't need to eat before you exercise, because as you move, you've got stores. This is already in your muscle cell, just waiting to be used. So when you start moving the body and it needs the glucose, it plucks it down the pathway, plucks it down the pathway. The liver also can store glycogen. And glycogen in the liver can be sent all through the body. So when our brain needs it, it'll get it from the liver. Because when it's in the muscle cell, it can only be used by the muscle cell. But only so much glycogen can be stored. And we've still got a lot of glucose left over, and so now the body stores it in the most amazing fuel depot in the body. It's called fat. And in America, in Australia, on this high carbohydrate diet, what's happening? They're getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. From what I've shown you, which is basic science, you can see that fat doesn't make you fat. What makes you fat? It's this high carbohydrate diet. When the body keeps turning excess glucose into fat day after day, year after year, the results start to show on a large scale. This isn't just theory, we can see it in population data. In the United States, for example, adult obesity rates were around 15% in the 1970s. Today, they are over 42%, according to national health surveys. That change didn't happen because people suddenly started eating more butter or more meat. It happened during the same period when sugar intake, refined flour, sweetened drinks, and ultra-processed carbohydrates became everyday foods. A single can of soda contains about 35 to 40 grams of sugar, which is roughly 7 to 10 teaspoons. That sugar hits the bloodstream quickly, drives glucose up fast, and pushes insulin up fast. Do that several times a day, every day, and the body is constantly being told, store, store, store. Over time, cells can start responding less effectively to insulin. This is often called insulin resistance. When that happens, the pancreas works harder and harder to push out more insulin just to keep blood sugar under control. Large studies show that people who drink one or more sugary drinks per day have a much higher risk of weight gain and type 2 diabetes compared to those who rarely drink them. One long-term study that followed more than 90,000 women found that those who had one or more sugary drinks per day had an 83% higher risk of developing type 2 diabetes compared to those who drank less than one per month. That is not a small difference. The same pattern shows up with refined foods like white bread, pastries, breakfast cereals loaded with sugar, and snack foods made from white flour. These foods digest quickly, raise blood sugar quickly, and leave people hungry again soon after. That leads to more snacking, more insulin, more storage, and the cycle keeps repeating. Compare that with whole foods. Vegetables, beans, whole fruits, eggs, fish, nuts, seeds, and unprocessed meats digest more slowly. They don't push glucose up as sharply, which means insulin does not have to spike as high. People often find that when they base meals on these foods, they feel full for longer and naturally eat less without trying to. What's interesting is that when people shift both what they eat and when they eat, the results can be strong even without strict calorie counting. In clinical trials where people reduced refined carbohydrates and stopped late-night eating, many saw drops in body weight, waist size, and fasting blood sugar within just a few weeks. So the message becomes simple and practical. If the body is constantly flooded with quick sugars from morning to night, fat storage will continue. But if meals are built around real food, eaten at sensible times, with breaks between meals, the body gets a chance to burn stored energy instead of adding to it. Over time, that can change weight, energy levels, and long-term health in a very real way. So just having that faith in your body's ability to heal is part of the journey to get there. And John Gabriel, in his book, The Gabriel Method, he was, I have to tell you kilos, I guess pounds is about double kilos. So he was 100 I think 80 kilos, so that'd be nearly 400 pound, big man. He was like this, there's photos of him. And little by little he got that weight down, and there's a photo of him after 2 years, and he looks like he's got the body of a 20-year-old. You could count his abs. How did he get from this to this? He basically went through these Sustain Me principles, and I'll touch on some of them as we go through it. Now, one of the things he did was he pictured his new body. Now, you can't lay in bed and do nothing and picture your new body. Sorry, no. It's part of it. It's part of it. It's like someone can be doing everything right, and if they continually say, I'm never going to lose this weight, I'm never going to lose this weight, you know what the body says? Looks like we're never going to lose this weight. Your cells are very obedient to the mind, but there are some things that must stop. If you want to lose weight, if you want to conquer diabetes, and most people don't realise that caffeine is a dangerous substance to the body. We've got a book in our library called Caffeine Blues by a man named Kachansky, and his other title to the book is Wake Up to the Hidden Dangers of America's #1 drug. What's a drug? Highly addictive. People say to me, do you drink coffee? I say, no, I just watch the people suffer day one at our health retreat. Ooh. Do you know, coffee drinkers suffer more than the heroin addict, than the methamphetamine addict, than the alcoholic, than the smoker. Now, they recover quicker. They recover much quicker. But talk about short-term suffering, that they take the prize. If someone wanted to conquer New York, you know, they just have to stop the coffee. The nation would be crippled. Now, how it affects diabetes is that when you have a cup of coffee, it mimics a crisis response in the body. And that crisis response means that insulin's released to get more glucose into the cell because you're about to do the run or the climb or the fight of your life. And so what caffeine does is it overstimulates the pancreas, just as refined sugar does, just as some other substances do.
This overstimulation is not just a theory. Studies have shown that caffeine can reduce insulin sensitivity by around 15 to 30% in regular coffee drinkers, even when they are otherwise healthy. That means after a cup of coffee, the body often needs more insulin to deal with the same amount of glucose in the blood. Over time, that pattern can place extra pressure on the pancreas, especially in people who already struggle with blood sugar control. One controlled study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that when people consumed caffeine before a meal, their blood sugar levels after eating were significantly higher than when they did not have caffeine. That is a big deal for anyone dealing with prediabetes or diabetes, and even for people who think their blood sugar is normal. What makes this more concerning is that many people don't just have 1 cup of coffee. They have 2, 3, sometimes 4 cups a day. Add energy drinks, pre-workout powders, cola, and strong tea on top of that, and suddenly the nervous system is running in overdrive from morning until night. The body stays in a constant state of alert, as if danger is always around the corner. That's not how the body is designed to function long term. There's also the sleep side of this. Caffeine can stay in the body for 6 to 10 hours, sometimes longer, depending on the person. Research from sleep studies shows that even caffeine taken 6 hours before bed can reduce total sleep time and lower sleep quality. Poor sleep is strongly linked with weight gain, higher hunger hormones, and worse blood sugar control, so you end up with a cycle. Caffeine disrupts sleep, poor sleep increases cravings, cravings lead to more sugar and more caffeine, and the cycle keeps repeating. When people start removing caffeine and spacing their meals properly, something interesting often happens. Hunger becomes more stable. Energy levels become more even throughout the day. They don't feel the same crashes mid-morning and mid-afternoon. That's not because they are forcing discipline. It's because their blood sugar is no longer swinging up and down all day. This connects directly to what we were talking about earlier with giving the stomach a break and letting digestion complete. The body functions best with rhythm: eat, digest, rest, sleep, wake, move, light during the day, darkness at night. When those patterns are respected, many systems begin to work more smoothly without extreme effort. None of this means you need perfection. It means awareness. It means understanding that small habits repeated daily shape how the body behaves. Changing meal timing, reducing constant snacking, being cautious with stimulants, prioritizing sleep. These are not extreme measures. They are simple adjustments, but over weeks and months they can change how a person feels, how their weight responds, and how their blood sugar behaves. And often, it's not about adding more effort. It's about removing the things that are quietly working against the body every single day. If this video helped you understand weight loss in a clearer way, hit the like button so more people can see it. Share it with someone who's struggling and might need this information. Subscribe to the channel for more simple, practical videos like this, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one.